Hi there, it's Brenton here. Welcome back to another episode of the WIZE Way. I've got with me for this episode Jamie Johns. How are you, Jamie?
Yeah, good, Brenton. How are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you. Jamie, you were up in Brisbane on the weekend for a bit of a weekend away from the beautiful Great Ocean Road. And as you do, love spending a bit of time with other firm owners. So organised an impromptu mastermind on over the weekend with 12 other firms. I wanted to just record a short episode because some of the things that you discussed in that mastermind I thought would be really good for everyone listening in to the podcast. Because it wasn't so much about, what's going on in the industry and tactics and things like that. It was really kind of diving to a bit more of the core I won't say issues, but the core things that need to be focused on for firm owners to change and transform their business. So, would you give us a bit of an insight into what that morning was about and how this conversation come up, and then we'll dive into some of the nitty gritty of it.
Yeah, no, thanks, Brenton. Yeah, look, the bottom line is the session that we had there in Brisbane was about how do you make a massive change or a mindset shift? Because like with wise mentoring and our coaching, even in what we do and professional sports people, whether they're reaching for the Olympics or you're going for the premiership or whatever, you've got to first believe that you can do it. If you don't believe you can do it, you're not going to achieve it, and other people are going to see straight through you. So it was a really good deep dive into how do you actually get a mindset shift and actually, work out how you can change, because I believe fundamentally you actually have to change as a person. And, if you don't do the work under the skin, in the old grey matter, you're not going to do it externally. As you travel
Mhm.
within, you also travel without. And I think a lot of people forget that. They think that it's all just on the surface and, you can grow your firm and, add millions to it or whatever and think that you don't have to change. Well, that's just complete BS. Like you have to change your thinking. And that's what the session was about, Brenton. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's an interesting point there because I think, when a lot of firm owners come to us for help, whether it be in the midst of a growth challenge or an opportunity to take advantage of to scale up their firm, it's all firm focused. So it's all, we need technology to help us scale. We need technology to help us improve, or we need to hire new staff, or we need to figure out how to keep staff, or we need new clients. It's all tactics and firm focused. It's
Mm.
never, oh, I need to become a better leader or I need to become a better business owner focused. Um, but that's where you're saying it needs to start, or the journey needs to start.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I always say to people, if you don't believe what I'm saying, just look it up or, seek out some of the greatest minds on this. But, Dr. Stephen Covey says there's always two creations. In his first sort of couple of chapters of First Habits, he talks about, there's the invisible creation or the creation in your mind. And then the second physical creation. So, essentially it doesn't matter what you're looking at, the computer screen we're looking at or the chair we're sitting on. Someone thought about it first. It didn't just happen. And
Hmm.
your
Yeah.
business and your life is the same, so it really sort of fundamentally comes back to having a mindset shift around what it is that you visualize, how clear is it, what sort of clarity you've got on it. But then, fundamentally not being wishy-washy and working out, well, if my calendar is packed today with these appointments, if it's the same in 12 months' time, you haven't changed.
Hmm.
Because, if you're sort of living in the present, Brent, you can't change the past. You can only impact on the future. You can't change the future, but you can only have an impact on the future by what you do today. Um, so it's such an interesting topic that I think often coaches, glaze over this particular topic. And, I don't make any sort of, arguments about sort of trying to be the best coach I can be, because, people are coming to Wise and coming to myself and our team, and they're wanting the best coaching in the world. And I take that really
Mhm.
seriously, you know.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point there because again, when someone is receiving 150 emails a day, got client demands, team demands, anxiety is high, stress is high, health is low. These are some of the symptoms that we see a lot every day.
Mm.
It's hard to get in that frame of reference of, oh yeah, I need to be a better business owner. It's more about, oh, I need to bash out the next return and, stay ahead of the game. So
Mm.
how do you break that circuit? How do you have that moment of actually, if the future's going to be any different, something does have to change today, but I just don't know how.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, there's behavioral scientists have sort of found that after the age of 25, often we need some sort of traumatic experience to actually change. And there's a lot of study on that. And that can come in all sorts of different forms. One day you wake up and you work out you're spending 100 hours a week in your business, or you're going through a divorce because you never spent any time with your wife or your family. Your relationships break down. You're 20 kilos overweight. You've given up all your hobbies. You've given up all the things that you love just because of your work. And as you said, it's reflected of 200 emails in your inbox every day. So at some point in time, often, we get a tap on the shoulder until we get a slap.
Mhm.
What you want to do is avoid the slaps. Um, and so that, often that can be the trigger point. And that was in my case, like it was just like, well, do I really want to do another 20 years of this? And the answer for me was no.
Mhm.
And, that instigated a whole journey. That wake up call was a catalyst to instigate a whole journey. And then I had to go through change. And Brenton, when I went through the change and when I started, working with my mentor, little did I know it, but I was actually practicing what I call the 3x3 rules of change. And we can, and be great to sort of touch on that with the listeners, because I think if you understand the 3x3 rule of change, it'll give you the mindset and the tools and the know-how how to actually dig under the surface of your skin into your brain and work out how you're actually going to achieve your goals and, drive the change that you want.
Yeah, so I think certainly on this topic, it's so broad and also so deep that it's hard to often know where to start. So a simple framework would be a really good place. And yeah, I
Mm.
think you touched on it there. I think it'll be great to cover that off and leave it there for this episode because I think just just going down that path of having a look at this framework and thinking about what it means for you is a perfect place to start. So hit us with the framework.
Yeah, the bottom line is, Brennan, the framework is sort of what I call the 3 R's of change by 3 years, right? So I went through this, but on my journey, as you know, I've read probably well over 1,000 books, since I was the age of 15 on this topic, just trying to work out, fundamentally how do human beings work? So we come into the world and we're not really given any instruction manual, but a lot of us have to work it out ourselves, whatever that is. And for me, what I found was, it's sort of looking back now and reflecting, is I came across a book called Change or Die. I can't think of
Mhm.
the author's name, but we can put it in the notes. But essentially, if you're going to go through change, you've got to go through 3 R's. And, the first R is relate, right? So you've got to find someone that inspires you, someone that motivates you, someone who's achieved what you want. And it really needs to be this concept of tribe, like your tribe, or an emotional connection to a community or a person that inspires you to change. Because obviously, a bit like as Dan Martell says, a lot of the time you only change if the pain of staying the same is more than the change itself. So
Mhm.
the first R is to build a connection, build an emotional connection to a person or an individual, a community or a tribe that will inspire you to change. And that can't just be like Brenton, just like, today I'm going to talk to such and such, right? It needs to get this relationship to influence you needs to go over a period of 3 years. And that's why I call it the 3x3. Because, some people say, oh, well, you can change your habit in 3 months or 6 months. I don't believe that. I think it takes a consistent effort over, on average, a period of 3 years to undo, undo what you know and relearn. And then over that time frame, if you want to master the, for example, what we're talking about, if you want to master the growth of your business and leadership, and scale your firm, double, triple, whatever, beyond where you're at, it really does take the 3 years to consolidate your thinking and learn the body of knowledge that you need to, because often when you're dealing with a mentor, they've spent 20, 30, 40 years of accumulating knowledge, right? And we're trying and say you can pack that down into 3 months or 6 months is rubbish. If you can pack it down to 3 years, that's pretty good. Look at it like this. You go to university for a minimum of 3 or 4 years and we don't think anything of it, do we? And we probably spend these days 50 grand in the process, and these days we come out of that and say, well, what do you know? Well, you actually don't know anything because you're a graduate. Right? So there's a lot of arguments here, what I'm saying. So again, the first R is relate. The second R is to repeat the skill that community or person or individual teaches you. So you've got to repeat the skill day in, day out, month in, month out, year in, year out. And again, over the period of 3 years until you develop new habits. The problem is often if we repeat the skill, just for 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 months, and then you lose contact with that influencer, that mentor or coach, have a guess what happens. I'll just go back to,
back to the old ways.
Yeah, I'll just go, oh, it's quicker if I just do it myself. Oh yeah, right. That's the worst thing. So that second R is to repeat the skill that you've actually learned from the person who inspires you in the first place, the one that you're relating to. That's the second one. The third R is very important as well, is to reflect or reframe. I like the word reflect because I think you've got to stop at least once a week, once a month, every 6 months, and then at minimum once a year. Like people have a New Year's resolution and, oh yeah, I don't like the me and what I did in the past 12 months. And, 1st of January, I'm going to sign up to the gym and, I'm going to, the typical New Year's resolution. Now, a lot of those New Year's resolutions, they never hold because they don't have the first 2 R's that we just spoke about.
Yeah.
But the importance of the last R, the reflect, it's in the process of reflecting and asking the question, am I a better version of myself, whether, personally or professionally, than I was a week ago, a month ago, a year ago? And it's in the reflecting that, combined with the other 2 R's, that you actually develop new neural pathways in your brain so that you're actually changing. But if you never take the time to show gratitude, or you never actually, book in the time to actually ask yourself, a bit like discovery, have I actually improved? Will you actually learn anything? No. And all the greatest leadership books in the world will tell you the number one of qualities of leadership is self-awareness, right? But if you're not self-aware, how do you know what sort of travel, how do you know what distance you've traveled either mentally or physically? So reflecting is really measuring, am I a better version of myself today than I was yesterday? And in that process, there's magic in that. And that's the 3 R's by 3 years, the 3 by 3. And if you consistently practice those 3 R's, find your tribe, find the individual that inspires you, repeat what they tell you, repeat the skill that they're teaching you, and lastly, reflecting whether you're actually improving based on the first 2 R's, and do that for a period of 3 years, you're likely to change.
Yeah. And it sounds very much like it's a 3-legged stool. Like you can't have one missing.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's really superficial. And another analogy or metaphor of this is, again, I come back to one of the greatest business books ever read, personal development books ever read, is Dr. Stephen Covey. And he talks about what he calls the personality ethic versus the character ethic. And Dr. Covey did, I think it was like a 20-year thesis on PhD on what that actually means. And the personality ethic is just the shiny bits and everything that you see. The character ethic is what you don't see under the surface, and he uses an iceberg as a metaphor for that, because with an iceberg you only see probably the top 10%, but it's actually the 90% that you don't see that counts, that makes it stable. And a classic example of character ethic is failing fast, never giving up, grit. A lot of studies about grit, just determination. Ultimately, the people who succeed in the end they fail, they do it again, they do it again. Elon Musk is a classic one. So,
Yeah.
success is about how much are you determined to put up with in order to achieve that goal. But the beauty of mentoring and coaching and traveling the 3x3 is that obviously you can avoid a lot of the roadblocks and a lot of the red flags, that because someone else has done it. Someone else has done it, and that's the key.
So I think that's a really simple framework to follow, but there is still a lot of depth in those 3 R's. So for anyone listening to it going, I really resonate with that, makes a lot of sense, I want to go on that journey. To finish up this episode, what's one piece of advice, a word of encouragement that you'd like people to leave with from this episode, other than just do it? What's something you want them walking away from this episode thinking about?
Yeah, look, I think the biggest thing in this day and age, and not just our industry but across the board, is for people to understand, or is for people to understand that I think life and business needs to be an adventure. And what I mean by that is simply what is it that you've actually in your heart have dreamed of doing? So whether it's your bookkeeping business, your accounting business, what in your heart and mind have you dreamed of doing that you've been afraid to do? Like that you've thought, oh no, I couldn't do that. Oh no, I'm not smart enough to do that. I couldn't do that. Right? That's actually where your gold lies. That's like almost the reluctant
You're
hero.
calling.
You're calling. Yeah. And often it's the things that frustrate us about our industry. Like often it's the things that frustrate you. Think, oh geez, I wish I could fix that. But then you say to yourself, oh no, I'm not smart enough to do that. So my message is, purely and simply, find some time and sit down and write down, a goal or a dream that you've had for your life that you've never been had the confidence to do, because it's actually in the journey that changes everything. It's in that journey. So the message is, I would say, to write down what it is that you actually want out of your business. What's your why? Why are you doing this? And what do you think is possible for you? Because as you know, Brent, a lot of the times I say to people, look, if you had 2 or 3, days spare in your business and your business ran without you, what would you do? And the problem is a lot of people, they don't know, because they've never had the headspace to think about it. But it's amazing what happens when you do set a goal and you start on the journey achieving it. The final thing I'll say is this, and this came out of the workshop on the weekend. You don't demand success. You attract success by the person you become. And I think Jim Rohn said that, and I think that was a big takeaway from the workshop that we had on the weekend. But yeah, you don't demand success. You attract success by the person you become. And so that goes back to where we started the whole conversation. is, as Jim Rohn said, work harder on yourself than you work on your job. Is it easy? Of course it's not easy, but it's worth it. Yeah.
Love it. I'm going to leave it there. This framework has come from a more detailed framework that we just put together called the WIZE Mindset Shift Framework. If anyone listening to this has enjoyed the glimpse into the 3 R's of the 3x3 and wants that more detailed framework, please reach out to us here at WIZE, or find Jamie Johns on LinkedIn and send him a message, and we'll get that to you. It'd be great to connect in any case. But look, if you liked what you heard, please welcome you to search some of the other episodes on the podcast, or again, reach out to us at WIZE. Be more than happy to connect and have a chat to you. I hope you've gotten a great couple of little nuggets of gold advice there from Jamie's weekend in Brisbane. Thanks for sharing, Jamie, and we'll see you on another episode.
All right. Thanks for having me again, Brenton.
Bye for now.
Bye.